got? What did we show? What did we show you today in the footage? Ken Leung's coming back. Ken Leung, who worked with Michael on Lost, who's an actor I'd long wanted to work with, who starred in guest starred in episode 1. Will be coming back, and we'll just be continuing to try to tell compelling stories of the week set in a different world in New York, but slowly ratcheting up kind of the tension. And like I said at the panel, I think when you have great actors, you want to give them great material. So much as everyone, I'm sure the audience and the writers and all of us would be happy to just kind of hang out right where we're at right now. With 4 characters who, thank you, 4 characters who like each other, understand each other. There's still secrets there, still lots of secrets, but they're kind of allies. And it's not that they won't be allies, but it's that, you got to throw a wrinkle in there occasionally. So expect things to take a turn for the worst.
One of the things we asked Taraji was whether or not the relationship between Fesco and Carter was going to change as they be competitive for compromise. And then she kind of brought up the fact that Carter really doesn't still trust where the information's coming from, so she feels like investigating. So are they going to possibly team up to investigate where the information's coming from?
We've seen that in... oh, no, you haven't. You're going to see that in episode 3. That they have a somewhat different philosophy about just how far they should push that issue. Carter's a natural detective. She's never going to be satisfied with, being kept at arm's length. But Fusco has a very different background, kind of understands the distinction. I think the line that he used in the 3rd episode is, whatever level these guys are playing at, we're not there. So you're going to continue to see that be a question and a source of some disagreement between them.
It's felt like we've really come to see the universe of Person of Interest. The past season, we just got to see more and more. I'm curious, is that something you enjoy, sort of this universe building element of the show? And are we going to see more of this, world that you've created?
Yeah, it's about the characters. It's about our sort of fictional version of New York, and the great fun of TV. And one of the reasons I wanted to do it was that you get to work with a lot of great actors. You get to tell a lot of story. Whereas most of my job on a film is actually cutting story. That's, there's a lot of creating story, but then there's a lot of removing story as well. Here it is the opposite problem. It's a great problem to have. So we're planning to continue building our world, one character at a time, one character every week, and hopefully throwing some Easter eggs and some tricks in there along the way.
The show is really, on some levels, a procedural, but it's also developing a really deep mythology, like a lot of genre shows do. How do you strike a balance on an episodic basis?
We looked long and hard at shows like The X-Files that really pull it off with grace, and we're able to tell compelling stories of the week. We felt like the franchise of our show, the kind of natural, fun franchise, a little like shows like Quantum Leap, was you just kind of, airmailed into someone's world.
Right.
Our 2 investigators, our 4 investigators, find themselves kind of just, all you get is a person, so you're trying to figure out their world each week. And that felt like a great natural franchise for a procedural. Procedural to me has never been a 4-letter word. These are the TV shows I grew up watching. Sure. And there were some fantastic ones. You're talking about Hill Street Blues, Miami Vice, Magna P.I., The X-Files. The nice thing about it as well is that you get to tell a complete story. You don't have to just keep the plate spinning for one more week, kind of come up with something to happen just for the sake of something happening. Right. You get to step into a world, explore it for a little bit, step back out of it, but simultaneously keep this deeper mythology. And that was an aspect of my favorite shows was always the bigger questions. I was a huge Magnum fan when I was a kid, and you were always wondering what happened to his wife, what happened to his kid, how does this guy wind up living in the guest house of, who is Robin Masters? I mean, you could stretch those out for 10 seasons, but we aim each season to give our audience as many answers as we give them questions, because I think that's playing fair by the audience. So far, it seems to be working.
Yeah.
We're a few episodes into this season. What are some of the episodes that we can be looking forward to? Tell us a little bit about episode 7. Is it the
Well, I'm going to get in trouble if I say any particular episode you should be looking forward to, because I got a writing staff and they're all extremely talented and we feel neglected. We try to make every episode one that you got to tune in for. the larger movements that are playing out here in terms of the serialized aspect of the story. You know, like I said, when you got great actors, you want to give them challenging material. So we're going to throw some challenges at them a little later on in the season. And of course, you got Root. She said she's going to be back. It's just a question of when and how.
Yeah, we saw her on the panel. So will that happen before mid-season?
Define mid-season.
It's like episode 12, I guess, it's where it's typically.
No comment. I think you'd expect her to, you know, the thing about Root is she surprises you. But we have we have a number of other villains that we need to catch up with.
Hopefully for Sweeps.
The intersection. We try to make every episode a Sweeps episode.
Yeah.
They're still trying to explain to me what Sweeps is. Yeah, we have the great problem that we have on the show is we have these wonderful actors and some fun characters that we've created for them, and a lot of fans who want to catch up with each and every one.
Do you have the whole season mapped out? Do you know where you want to end up?
We do. Last year was the first season of television I ever worked on, and it wasn't a total disaster from our perspective back in the writers' room. You go into it. This is kind of one of the fun things about it. You go into it with some assumptions, some suppositions, some mandates, and then we have an extremely talented group of writers, and they come up with better ideas, and then we get to take credit for them. So I think you have to have a certain amount of flexibility going through the season. Some characters work less, and so you tend to write to the material that's working within the constraints of where we know this is inevitably going. And I felt like when I pitched the show, and maybe this is naive on my part, but I felt like you had to know where it was going. It's a question of when you're pitching it to networks, they'll ask you, okay, so what's the series finale? And we have an answer for that. We know where it's going, but the fun is that some of the stops along the way, you can you sort of discover new territory as you're going.
I write for comic book resources, so forgive me if I'm stretching a little bit here, but
Sure.
we see a lot of Batman Beyond in this show, with like the Bruce Wayne bringing in sort of a new up-and-comer in Jim Caviezel's character. Was that at all intentional, or were we just...
Well, I spent a lot of time in the Batman universe, and there's definitely, I'm sure, some similarities. Batman Beyond is a very cool property, but it's not one that I spent a lot of time looking at. But that idea, if you look at any comic book, almost any comic book hero, the key component seems to be the vigilante aspect. There's something extremely compelling about having a character who's trying to help people, but in doing so is putting themselves in kind of harm's way, both naturally and legally and all those sorts of things. So I looked at the great successes of comic book movies in the last 10 years, which is kind of a phenomenon. It's a great time for comic book fans to be going to the movies, and wondered why that hadn't necessarily translated to the small screen. And I felt like you had a couple of things that worked there, but the essence of it. So we tried with Person of Interest. It's a science fiction show, but there's a genre element to it. We tried to strip it down to the essentials. What are the essential attributes of a comic book hero, and then ground it even more. Those are the comic book characters I was always drawn to. Batman, chief among them, because he's a guy. He's a guy, and his superpower is rage and money, and that makes for compelling watching.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.